Hello, brilliant souls. Welcome to Rainbows and Real Life, the show dedicated to bringing positivity to the forefront, celebrating the power and promise of the human spirit, and just supporting each other in challenging times. We believe when we join together, we all live better lives, and we're exploring ways we can do that in today's ever-changing world. I'm Pamela Aubrey, and I'm here with my rock star co-host, Christopher Rausch, the No Excuses Coach. Great to see you tonight, Christopher.
Great to see you too, Pamela. How are you, darling?
Thank you. I am doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Fantastic.
And we have a wonderful guest on tonight.
Yes, we do.
So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Coach Troy Aberle. Welcome to the show, Coach Troy.
Hey, everybody. How you guys doing?
If I was doing any better, I'd be twins. World domination.
You have amazing hair today, Christopher.
Thank you very much. I put it on myself.
Pam, you look amazing too.
Thank you. So kind of you. So before we jump in, since some of our viewers may not know you, tell us a little bit about where you're from and just, what your life was like growing up.
Holy moly, that's like a massive question.
Just a little one.
Yeah, just a little one.
Just, give us a taste, some of the flavor.
Okay, so my name is Troy Aberle. I'm from Alberta, Canada, a little city called Calgary, and we live literally on the edge of the Rocky Mountains. And so I have married to my wife, Robbie, and I have two Kidpreneur sons, Luke and Everett. And so that's where
Which are both
from.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I have actually met them, and I'm sure Robbie has as well, but I haven't actually met her. So,
great family, great team, and we have a lot of fun together. And myself, I'm a certified Tony Robbins coach, but also a certified Bob Proctor consultant. So, having a lot of fun in life and helping serve people at the highest level I can, and kind of doing a little bit of rebrand part of it, because I'm really following a focus of what I'm doing now is really focusing on high frequency habits, and which is the name of my new company. And so, for many years, starting out, I've definitely, learned from a lot of great people, Brendan Burchard, Jim Rohn, Chad Holmes, Tony Robbins, like a lot of really great people. And, I went from an average life, where I grew up on a family farm. And for those who don't know, and lived out in the prairies and learned about hard work and learned about all the common things that people do. But, that also came with common beliefs and habits, and what for me turned into a lot of work, a lot of stress, also turned into depression, anxiety, and getting off course in life, and, relationships that weren't serving me, and becoming addicted to alcohol, and, just all the things in life that really, I don't think are that dramatic because it's just so common from where I'm from. But it, when I realized that I really wanted to change and achieve way bigger goals than I'd ever been given credit for or could even think of or dream of achieving, I started to, really want to see a very different level of life. And even as early as probably 9 or 10 years old, love being surrounded by really intelligent people and trying to figure out ways of doing that. But where I really started to implement it then really wasn't until I was like 30 years old, where I really started to become invested in myself first. And I got some good advice from a person who said, invest in yourself. And that's going to, change your life, and it's going to change the people around you. And it's also going to change, the type of impact that you're able to provide the world. And for me, I love just to help people. It didn't matter if it was, helping them figure out what kind of car to buy, or what kind of DVD player, or, something in business or marketing or what have you. I just loved researching and figuring that out. So, but, to kind of fast forward, I've always been in management my entire life, and going through different things, but, good at managing other people, but not myself. And that's where that rocky road started to happen. And, fast forward, I'm trying to fast forward for you guys here a little bit.
Well, let's not fast forward too much, right?
Okay.
So we don't want to skip over the things that are important. So you started your career out then in sales, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually. So we were farming and doing that, but at the same time, we didn't have enough money for farming and doing all that. So I was working for, I don't know, labor companies. I worked on other farms. I worked, I was trucking steel. I was doing all kinds of, heavy duty work life things, right? Taking care of cattle and farming chores and all kinds of things for people, and plus our own. So, I mean, I've always been doing that. But I started out actually, Pam, I was going to become a heavy duty mechanic. And so I decided to start my apprenticeship, and I found out how much I really hated doing that. And I really wanted to get into business. And so I did my post-secondary in business and entrepreneurship and whatnot, and learned about all the things in business. But then I could apply that to farming, and I thought I'd run a really big farm. But none of that worked out. And so for good reasons. And ended up selling the family farm, but I was also, marketing solar systems for livestock watering and reverse osmosis things in different countries like Africa and Timbuktu and all these places. And it did that in North America, in the US and in Canada as well. But then also started working in sales management for Fastenal Industrial Supplies, and then got into oil and gas and doing instrumentation sales for that and service equipment. And then I started a career with John Deere. And then I'd done that for just about 10 and a half years in sales for that company as well.
And you were successful, correct? I mean, you were doing well, and in the eyes of society, people were looking at you thinking, okay, this guy's successful.
Yeah. So, if you look to date, when I quit sales, direct sales like that, I'd crossed over, I don't know, like $418 million worth of sales. Right. And I was selling, a lot of equipment. Like in 2017, I was the most profitable salesperson for John Deere in all of North America. And I'd really figured out some really cool things. And that was a result of me stepping up to look for higher goals, but also to really understand human behavior. Understanding my own human behavior first, but then being able to apply that into the customer's behavior as well. So my goal was to create, and still is today, is to create the ultimate emotional experience for the client.
Oh, right? I love that. The emotional experience for the client. You mentioned something in there in the beginning when you were talked about, and I want to dive right into this. The show's called Rainbows in Real Life. So she's the rainbows and I'm the real life. You mentioned something in there that really struck me. And I want to talk about this as far as your journey, because now that you're a very successful coach, talk to us about that journey going through the addiction to alcohol and what got you there, and then what got you out and what you learned from that experience.
Yeah. Can I talk about 6 human needs for 2 seconds? That's where I want to go. Because it's
sure. As long as it answers that question.
It does. Tony Robbins, when I heard the 6 human needs, Christopher.
Is that like Maslow's? The hierarchy of needs?
Yeah. So, number 1 was certainty. Number 2, uncertainty. Number 3, significance. Number 4, relationships, love and connection. And then number 5 is growth. And number 6 is contribution. When I realized that I was fulfilling my own human needs with alcohol or with, unhealthy eating or unhealthy conversations or different things, really started to study that. I started to realize, what I was doing. But then I was able to then, find different ways of fulfilling my needs and be able to realize that alcohol didn't need to be that priority in my life. And so for me, then being able to really understand, I could stay with alcohol, I could, drink every day and night and whatnot. I could party, I could be the life of the town. But the truth is I wasn't partying inside. I was faking it. And, and that's what was really curbing a lot of criticism or a lot of fear, a lot of things around me. Right. But I realized that a lot of people in sales, that's what they go through. They go through these ups and downs. I was traveling a lot and there was a lot of things that were happening. Right. And so when you start to realize that that's what you were using to curb those highs and lows, if you will, or make you totally invincible, because then you're even more happy and whatever, and you're always the person creating great illusions for people. Truth was, I was going home and I wasn't happy. I mean, I was earning great money. I was doing really good things, but I realized, if I wanted to take my life to a higher level, I needed to become infatuated with the clues that were going to get me to the next level. So what did I have to do? Look at my own physical and mental health, and almost everything I was doing was the opposite. So that's how it was. For me, it was like this, Christopher. If I didn't make the change, I was going to lose it all. My family, myself, and my customers, and credibility.
Mm.
But having the attitude and decision to be able to say to myself in the mirror, you know what, you are enough, you are awesome, and who gives a rat's ass about anybody else around you? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on Rainbows.
Yeah.
But anyways, but it, forgive me. But the thing was, but do you know what? So what happened was, Christopher, is you're helping me get into a piece here. When I was 34 years old, I literally took a piece of paper on December 1st, and I literally drew a line right down the center of it, sir. And at the top of it, though, I wrote my 3 goals, and one of them was I wanted to be, I had a number in mind of what I wanted to be earning per year. I also wanted to have no alcohol, and I wanted to be clean of everything, right? And number 3, I wanted to put myself before anybody else and make sure that I was there. So what I started to do is I drew a line down the center of the page, and on the left side I wrote down 0 to 34 years old was chapter 1, okay? And I started writing down all the stuff that I was doing that was going to prevent me from getting to those goals, whether that was in here as a mental thought or as a physical action, okay? And so if I didn't have self-confidence or self-awareness or those things, or if I was out boozing, or I was, eating at McDonald's or doing, whatever, right? Laying on the couch watching TV or any of that stuff, all that stuff was not going to get me my goal. On the other side, though, guys, I wrote down 34 to 118 years old, and I said that's going to be my chapter 2. And 118 seemed like a nice number because I'm going to eat a little healthier and have some kiwis and stuff and do some good things. But I knew that I needed to get there. And so, what I did was I wrote the opposite polarity across into that next thing. And instead of, no alcohol, I replaced it with 10 gallons of water, or, better food, meditation. I then actually went into, that was the exact same weekend. I also got recruited, I hate to use the word recruited, invited to take Reiki. So I took Reiki level 1 and 2, went back, got my master's, and because all of it, I had to create a neurological experience where I could associate way more pleasure to doing something than all the pain that I was trying to avoid by not doing it, right? And so it's just all backwards.
And I don't want to gloss over that. Like, I mean, you're saying a lot, but I want people to be able to pause for a moment and take in some of what you're saying, because I think it's really important for people to understand that this isn't just you make up your mind and then it happens. Like, there's a process to this, right? There's some steps that you have to go through. So this was the process that got you where you are today. Okay, so that being said.
So then I said no more alcohol was one of the first steps, right? But how did I do that? Right? And it's one thing to say, you just have water, whatever. But no, I was neurologically saying to myself, I thought of the word vodka. I thought of, cancer and death, divorce, right? I literally meditated it right through. I thought of chewing tobacco or anything else I was doing is, the cancer, right? Having to tell your kids, I'm sorry, I was a loser, whatever, right? I'm not telling anybody that you're losing, but for me, I had to apply myself that I was losing if I followed that lifestyle, because it was all or nothing. But, the cool part is, like, I didn't have to, I didn't need to come up with BS like Nicorette or, go to some ADAC thing and all. I'm not saying any of that's wrong. It's just that I didn't need it because it wasn't a part of the equation anymore. And so I studied NLP with Tony Robbins and in the ways that he does it and whatnot. And so I had a beautiful experience because now I was in complete control of myself. And so that's what really happened.
You were also motivated, though. Like, you had come from a background where you saw how these things had affected your life and your parents' life and previous generations. And you didn't want that for your life or your family's life going forward, correct?
Yeah, because Luke was 2 when this happened. So for me, it was like, Luke's never going to see this. I watched my parents. I watched other people's parents, drinking all the time and partying. Don't get me wrong. All that's great. It's just that $30,000 a year wasn't going to pay my bills for the life I wanted.
Right.
Being divorced 2 or 3 times wasn't going to, I could see where it was all going because that was the type of people I was around. And I'm not saying that anybody else going through different things in their life is anything bad. But what I'm saying is if you have something in your life today that isn't aligned with what you want to do, decide. Get out of that relationship. If you need to be skinnier, jog. You don't need a gym, right? pay me $40 an hour. I'll chase behind with my car and tell you to run. None of this is real rocket science. And so stop looking for what you're giving up. Yes, you're going to deprive yourself of things, diabetes, lung cancer, right? You're going to deprive yourself from alcohol poisoning, or getting fired in a DUI. There's a lot of things you're going to deprive yourself of. But truthfully though, guys, is one of the coolest things that did happen that night is I decided that way back when. And so what happened is I literally phoned up 11 people. Some are family, most of them are friends, long-term friends. And I fired every single one of them. Everybody who didn't support me or what I really wanted.
What do you mean by fired? But I love this. What do you mean by fired?
I said, I'm calling to tell you that I've decided to start chapter 2 of my life. And that's where the whole name Chapter 2 came from, was because I literally said Chapter 2 is going to be 34 to 118. I said, you're not part of it. You don't support me. You don't support my family. I can't see us being together, me trying to create a new lifestyle. You've always been hard on me about even thinking this way. And some of the people, like these were 30-year relationships. And I swear I've never talked to them since.
Dude, we got to dig into that. That is massive. I tell people all the time, sometimes you got to wish people well, especially when you're on that trajectory of improving yourself, that sometimes you're going to improve yourself and people they're going to be like, what are you doing? And they want you to stay miserable like they are. And they can't remain, your close circle of friends. So I applaud that. I had to wish my sister well in 2005. She's my half sister, but I was like, adios, batshit crazy. You're on your own. So I applaud that. Talk to us about that experience and what the aftermath was, that and how you process that, because I can only imagine that you got a lot of flack for that. How did you stand your ground and be able to own where you were at?
Yeah, no, thank you. Good question. You put so much certainty into the goal that you have and the picture you have, and you decide, am I gonna fake it anymore? Because I really felt like I was like Jennifer Aniston on Friends, right? You're getting she's getting paid, what, $1.5 million. Well, I'm amazing too, right? And but if you look at, I just can't remember everybody else's name, so I had to pick her. But anyways, I'll be Joey for Chandler or something. But anyways, but what happened is, you look at those guys were getting paid what, $1.5 million, $2 million an episode, and they got tired of playing the role. And you know what? All of us on here watched Friends because we're in that age group. But it's, you think about it, even us, we got sick and tired of watching it. The ratings go down, and the whole faking it just doesn't work anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, emotionally, I knew that I was already frustrated, and I knew that, the only way you're going to get through, and it's not that I was only getting through addiction, it's being on a path of going to a goal that has no meaning to me, right? It's not about addiction. The reason why you're addicted is because it's the feeling of certainty of the outcome. When you take a drink, the buzz, how powerful you feel. It's no different than a bully at school holding his fist to a kid. It's just certainty and significance, right? And so, the thing is when I decided to do that, my wife didn't know I was doing it. I went out to the garage and I phoned these people and I seriously told them, you know what, we're done. And you know what? And they said, what does that mean? I said, or does that mean, like, I remember one person said, are we breaking up? I said, you can call it whatever you want. I'm just telling you, you were part of the first chapter of my life. I applaud it. I thank you. But I also think that you're an ass jack, and I used a different wording, but but we're done. And I said, if I see you in the mall, you, by all means, tip your hat. Don't stop and walk over.
Damn, dude, you have love it. Yeah.
But so here's the cool part. So at first it's weird, right? Now now I'm cutting grass or golfing without a beer, right? Like, that's weird. Like, how do you cut grass without a Ryan Coke? Like, that's really hard. Sorry, whiskey and Coke for the Americans. And then
I've been there,
and so it's like, all this is different. Wow, you swing a golf club this way, and and everything's different. Now you don't have friends to hang out with. So now you're out there, you're kind of the loner, and you're trying to figure it out. But here's the catch. Now you got to look in the mirror and realize that the person that you're missing is actually standing right in the mirror. And you got to fall in love with that person. And once you start falling in love with that person, you watch. And go talk to any celebrity, by the way. I'm not making this up. Is everybody will tell the same story. Is most of these people have 2 or 3 friends, and that's it. Because most people are trying to be your friend because of, I don't know, their own self-gain or personal gain.
Of course.
So for me, no, I needed my own self-gain for me. So what did I do? I put all my energy into teaching everything that came out of here into my son, Luke. And so for the next 2 or 3 years, that's all I did. Literally everything I could possibly think of, didn't matter what it was, business or whatever, language, actions, beliefs, whatever, I just put into him. I literally started taking him to work with me. I started doing everything. He came to so many different John Deere deals. It's insane. He listened. And then, so at that time though, I'd already started. Now I went and also hired a Tony Robbins coach. I went to UPW, walked across the fire, did all that stuff that was amazing for me. I literally did all this stuff to make sure that I had permanent transformation. Okay. But the cool part was then one of his coaches, Tony's top coaches at the time, he had went and he suggested to me, you know what, Troy, why don't you become a coach? You've gone through all this and you've done this. This is what you should do. And he loved the whole Chapter 2 program. We started using it for a lot of clients, and it was remarkable. I've been a part of, unfortunately, 6 suicides I got to prevent, and I'm using that program and start going through. And I really studied, I became certified then through Tony. I did so much work with Brendan Bouchard's programs and Jim Rohn and Napoleon Hill and all these people. And I wanted to be the person who I wanted to do for Pamela and Christopher. I wanted to have the opportunity to be able to do for you guys, what I was able to do for Troy.
Love it.
Is start a new chapter. Why? Because I proved you could do it. And honestly, I went to ADAC with other people that I was sponsors for and all that. And at the time, I'm like, I'm never going to get to this part. I'm going to do it my way, a different way. Now, everybody's different. Everybody goes through a different journey. Some people can't shake it. But the number one thing I can tell you this, change your frequency. How do you change your frequency? You change the people, first of all, that are around you. And you change the things that are coming in your ears, in your eyes, in your mouth, right? The things you feel, all that. And that's how you change your frequency, because then the law of attraction really starts to happen. Now you start getting other people in your life. Like, I would not be on this call with you guys tonight if I wasn't attractive in the part of this experience, right? And so,
and we come to these points where it's like, what am I really doing with my life? What is there a purpose to all of this? Like, why am I really here, right? And to be able to have an idea of what's worked for other people. And that's one of the things I love about doing this show. And Christopher and I talk about it all the time. Going back to what you were saying earlier, it's such a blessing to be able to put these stories out there for people to hear them, so they can, at some point in time, maybe just tap into the experience of someone else. And it can be such a powerful motivator for them. So I want you to keep going, but I wanted to just toss that in the ring with what you're saying.
No, you're an awesome person for interjecting with that. And I think if anybody was listening to what I'm saying today is decide truly what you want in your life. I went through 8 different sections, right? But the big ones for me is if your mental health isn't there and you're not clear on who you are and how you feel, if you don't feel dead certain about what it is that, where you stand in this world and the actions and beliefs you have that are getting you to your goal, you don't have certainty. I mean, certainty is, by the way, is a lot of times is going to McDonald's because the taste. You don't want to try that new restaurant. It's like watching a movie 10 times because you know how it's going to make someone laugh. I mean, look at marketing. Everybody came out with the old muscle cars because people, used to be able to pick up girls or guys, whatever, back in those days of the 70s, and they had to sell those cars because they had babies, and now they're looking for that same feeling again. So what do? They're buying a 2020 Challenger, right? Yeah. Or Mustang, right? And that's the marketing behind it, because that's the emotional experience. But if you're not getting certainty in your life for what you need it to be, you need to figure that out. And you need to figure out what you are significant for. What does that really look like? But think about everything I just said earlier. I was eating, drinking, and surrounding myself with language and conversations that were destructive, that weren't supportive of my dreams. And when they're not there, or you're in that relationship, whether it's with a spouse or whether it's with your best friend or people at work or whatever, if you're not moving towards your goal, you either got to check in with yourself, and you got to talk to the person and do that. You don't have to just fire everybody in the first day, but you got to talk to them and say, hey, you know what? How can we support each other? And you know what? Maybe before you go and you get lawyers involved, you say to the person, hey, I have a question. what is it in your life you want in your, to be able to achieve? How could I support you first? It's not all about you first, but get that conversation going. And if at the end of that conversation, over the few times that you do it, and you're not getting any support from any of the people there, cut the time.
Next. You got it. I mean, you really have to. I want to ask you a question. Were you married? I think you said you were married at the time when you did this. How did your relationship with your wife and your family change when you suddenly said, "Hey, adios to these people"? Did she have any contention with that? How did the dynamic between you and your wife change?
Well, it got way better, because the thing is, I'm coming to bed now sober, right? And you're not, out chancing a DUI, and you're not sitting, on the phone talking about negative crap that serves no value. I mean, when you're around that much friction and negativity, you're not having good conversations. There's no goal. The only goal is because she's remembering all the conversations from all the other people that you hear. And what do you do every Friday? You go get a 6-pack and you go get some crappy food. And what do? You literally don't do anything, and you cut the grass on Saturday. It's the same boring routine, which, no offense, is like literally 90% of mankind right now, right? But isn't it inspiring when you can be like, hey, on Sunday night, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, what are we doing next Friday, right? And you're already got something you plan for. I used to work all weekend. Now I don't, right? I live where I want to live. I do what I want to do. I drive the vehicles I want to drive. I have the income I want. And I mean, life completely changed. So for me being the guy that she actually married is blissful. It's amazing. It's empowering, because then you also take time for her, and you have balance, right? The kids and I mean, we have meetings during the week that, it's planned. It's, it's how we do it. And I mean, our family's maybe a little different dynamics in some way. We also do homeschooling and whatnot, but no, I mean, our relationship is absolutely fantastic. It's literally a team. Yeah.
I have to interject a question as well, because to follow up on what Christopher is asking, I think, while that happens in some situations you may have a spouse that's like, what's going on with you? Those were all of our friends. Like, what are you doing? You just, like, you might have somebody who's at a totally different vibration than you, and isn't ready to make all these changes, isn't ready for everything to be sort of uprooted. How do you deal with that?
Great question. I think that you have to talk about it, and you have to decide together what those goals were. We partied together all the time, all of us, every weekend, and that's what we did, right? But when you started chancing things and you started to tell that the conversations are different, when you start having kids, as you guys all know too, things start to change. The conversation's a little different, right? And you don't have quite the energy you used to. And now there's bottles and diapers, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But you have to decide together what it is you're going to do. If your marriage or your business relationship or what your friendship is only based on certain things that are going to prevent you from your goal, you got to get serious about your goal. And I think to have a good marriage or good relationship, you have to look at the other person. You don't have to agree with them, but I think what you have to do is you have to support them and saying, you know what, hey, you want to become an artist? Let's go get some art supplies. We're going to figure out how to make you the artist you want, right? If you want to become a police officer, you can do that. You do whatever you want. But if you can't stand the thought of helping someone else achieve their goals, I can already promise you this conversation doesn't even get to this point, because if you can't do that, you're not even in the mood for your own goals. I wasn't doing my goals to put my mask on first. I was doing it to become the leader that my family deserved.
Right. Nice. Okay. So I got a question for you. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm known as the no excuses coach. So I love diving into excuses. Talk to us about some of the common excuses you hear as a coach, and perhaps some of the strategies that you have seen work with your clients that we could share with the viewers, whether they're watching live or on the replay or listening to the podcast. What are some of the excuses you've been hearing over the last 18 months? Obviously we've been going through COVID at the time of this taping. Some people have launched new careers and launched businesses and changed things, while other people have digressed and just gone into a total state of victimhood. Given the context of today's environment, today's society, what are some of those excuses that you're hearing, and what are some of the ways that we can help our viewers overcome those?
Yeah. So I backed away from the Chapter 2 program a little bit, because I partnered with Bob Proctor just recently, and using his thinking and results, because it aligned with what I was doing. But what Bob's program did was it set me up to understand the excuses a lot more through paradigms and what those beliefs and habits were. People come to you because their human needs are going to be challenged. Often it's fear is the result. Fear isn't why you don't do anything. That's one result that you have. You can either have the fear of success, fear of failure, fear of self-worthiness. That's the byproduct of it. It's when your story doesn't have confidence, when you don't really believe that your story can be written and that you feel passionate and true about it, then you'll come up with excuses that I'm scared. I don't know what to do, right? I don't think my spouse will support me. We don't have enough money, right? I don't have the education. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't know, man. Like right now, there's so many excuses and they're so confusing because it's almost like people are like looking up excuses to try and figure out what to say first. You know what I mean? And I'm not taking, right. And I'm not trying to make little of it, but I think people are so scared of figuring out how to react so that it at least feels certain and comforting.
So what do they do?
Most people just either implode, and then they become completely in, I don't know, is it cocoon mode, like what you were kind of saying there?
Mm-hmm.
Or they definitely see it as a total opportunity. I mean, for a lot of people, they might be able to get out of an industry that they've always hated. And they might be able to go do something now that gives them more freedom and more time and more things. But I think, first of all, what you have to do is, rather than me, worry too much about the excuse, is get super focused on your goal. What is that fantasy you want to live? How do you see your life? How do you see yourself showing up? And do you know what? Because when you have that, Christopher, now you can actually say, maybe that job wasn't for me, maybe that career, that business or all that, because it actually didn't align with my goal. And what's so cool is then you can say to yourself, okay, so if maybe that company actually was giving me a good place and it is going to help me get my goal, because if my goal is to buy a cabin somewhere, be able to go fly fishing and buy my Harley, and I'm really good at this, and now I just need to recalibrate and change my story, my view around that. That's what you're gonna have. And now all of a sudden you might actually get a whole new flavor, and you might go and you might ask your boss, how do I take my career to the next level within this company and do something, right? Rather than sit back and look for excuses. There's 1,000 excuses, but I'm just telling you, nobody gives a crap about your excuse, because the excuse is the story that you've come up with now at this point for your situation and for your belief of the world. So you can either be a victim or a victor. You can do whatever you want, right? It has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with politics, has nothing to do with COVID or the economy. It's how you can get resourceful with what you have as a potential. And when you surround yourself with people that are going to support you in your dream, they're also going to bring you resources. So if you want the biggest house on the block, build the biggest house on the block with all your friends and family and the people who support you, or just do what everybody else does and burn down the whole entire community. And then you're still left with your big house, right? But the truth is that's not fun. So find out what your goal is. Find out what your wife's goal is. Find out what your kids' goals are. How can you put the whole thing together to make something really beautiful? Go ask your coworker. Go ask your boss. Find out what your business plan is, the company you work for, And I'm just saying, when you start to figure out places to go and places to work towards, it's called a new culture. It's called a movement. You're going to create.
It's called taking responsibility and being resourceful.
Everybody has the ability to have a new chapter in their life. You can take a company right now that can start a new chapter, right? Look how many companies went bankrupt because in the last couple of years, it isn't because of COVID. COVID was the icing on the cake for them, and it's, if it's like Kodak, like why wouldn't you have come out with digital cameras a long time ago, right? Mm-hmm. But you waited it through, and you came out with some junky cameras to try and pretend you cared about your customer, and you'd let it all go. Same thing happens in your relationships. So get surrounded with the right people, make sure that what you're delivering is value from your heart and soul, and create the ultimate emotional experience for everybody around you. Make sure their 6 human needs are being fulfilled.
Love it. Thank you, Troy. Thank you.
I love that. And, but I'll be honest. I mean, I can almost hear the excuses, people coming up with the excuses while you're saying that. So what do we do with those excuses? When they're coming up, what do we do with those?
Great. So how about, what I would do is I'd write down all the excuses in the world. So if you said, hey, I
don't feel like it. That's the one I get a lot. People are like, I just don't feel like it. And I have my own thing about that. But what do you say when somebody says they don't feel like it? I just don't feel like getting up at 7. I'm not a morning person, Troy. You don't understand. It's hard.
And you know what I'd say to
I
you?
just had somebody say that to me the other day, and I just
then why push yourself? So what do you feel like? Do you like staying up late? Right? And so what could you do in those times of being late? Is it have to be Netflix, or could it be personal development and coming up with a new plan? Right? You know, and
ride a bike while you watch 2 hours of Netflix.
Right? I mean, don't get me wrong, Yellowstone's a good show and I like that, but you know, I plan out for the exact same thing of what I want. And if I've committed to myself that to be the ultimate coach for people, I have to show up with the right attitude. You know what? I have to be primed and pumped. And I have to be surrounded by all of these elements that are happening. So yeah, have an excuse, because most people are going to doubt themselves because they don't have a goal. They don't have a passion for themselves, and they don't know what to do. And why? Usually it's their parents didn't have a goal, and their people before that, and they said, just go get a good education, work at 7-Eleven till you're 19. We'll give you a couple grand towards your student loans, and you'll work till you're 350 years old to pay off your loans.
Yeah.
And, you know, make sure you're using birth control, because if you have kids, you're going to be bankrupt for life. And so all of it goes wrong, and guess what happens, right? And that's just how it works. And then so none of it's convenient. Everybody wants to go and lay by the pool and the beach and go to Mexico 3 times a year. I get all that, because that's the conditioning you've given yourself. When you put more happiness, like to work for 1 week a holiday a year, to work 51 weeks, guys, is what most people work to get 1 week off. And while they're on that 1 week off, they still take their cell phone and laptop with, because their boss told them to. Right? Entrepreneurs say they work to get financial freedom and time freedom. I don't know too many that got it. So what I'm saying is you got to fall in love with what you do. Get your family involved with what you do and what they do. Right? You can do so many cool things. But if you have an excuse, reverse the polarity of it, Christopher. Reverse the polarity.
I think it's important too for people to understand. I mean, because there are going to be people whose families don't get on board, right? And to know that they are going to have to hold their ground and stick to what really matters to them.
Make a vision board, draw it on a paper. What does our life really look like if we do this? You know, it's weird when you tell your kids, take out the garbage. No kid does it. You both know this. This is how you say, Luke, go put out the garbage. Whatever, Dad. But you say, hey, Luke, you say, hey, Luke, guess what? We're going to play video game right after you take out the garbage, right? Now you future pace the goal, change the language. Don't make it about the same language of what your parents taught you. Change the way you word it, and inspire people. Push inspiration. Don't grab somebody by the hand and pull them. If you feel like you're pushing them in the back or on the forehead, it's not going to be a good conversation, right? Grab their hand and say, let's go. Let's try this. And if they don't want to come along, go do it yourself.
Right. Set the example, lead by example. I want to kind of change directions here for a second, because I noticed on your website that you do consulting, you work with organizations. I saw that you work with executive leaders. Given the state of COVID, given the state of the new generation, I used to teach on generational differences in the workplace. So I studied that for a while. Given Generation Y, the millennials and Gen Z, and what's going on in the Great Resignation and everything else, what are some powerful techniques that leaders need to understand and implement today to retain their workforce, to better understand their workforce, and to be more effective leaders?
I'd say that one of the number one things, Christopher, is to really set that target of what you want for the company, what you want for yourself, what you want for the company, and empower people to also have those same questions. Include your team. When everybody knows what the goal is right now, if you walk down, I don't care if it's a car dealer or house builder or whatever, go to any company tomorrow and ask each and every employee, especially some of the managers, is even more funnier when you ask, what is the business plan of the whole company, and they can't answer you. Pretty hard to get inspired and work really hard, right?
Make more money, get more customers.
And everybody's, complaining about Generation Z and the millennials and all that stuff. No, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just you haven't challenged them. You've never given them any tools. You haven't talked to them.
Yeah, they're smart people.
They're 100%. So go get a felt marker, find a piece of drywall that doesn't get washed, and write out the monthly goal of that company. Where are we going? And then start to look around and get resourceful for people rather than getting people to do tasks. Invest in a creativity department. How do we creatively start coming up with ways that are going to set us apart from the competition, right? How do we become the most expensive person in our marketplace? Everybody right now.
Describe that.
Well, because too many people, I believe, are fighting for the lowest price dollar right now. Pretty hard to fight with Jeff Bezos and those guys because, right now, most places are only allowed a couple people in the store with COVID. Online shopping is really easy. Come up with the way of being the most expensive with the most value that nobody could refuse. Because they will have a better emotional experience because of the extra value that they get.
Mm-hmm. And that's greatly missing these days. I mean, customer service, me and my wife were just talking about that. My wife and I were just talking about that. She's ordered for DoorDash. She gets her lunch sometimes. Every time something's wrong. And today, no joke, the driver said, oh, they didn't give you a drink. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I'm going to go call, DoorDash. Da, da, da. And all of a sudden this lady, she goes, oh, wait, here it is, ma'am. It was half gone. I was like, what the F? Are you serious? And just like customer service overall, it's been crazy. But yeah, I mean, to your point, it's about listening to your team. Yeah, it's just about listening to your team and empowering them.
Yeah. And so, and the thing is because, often you have blinders on of how the business is supposed to go, right? So an executive right now, his big problem is their big problem today. What they're saying is how do I get people from like either shiny object syndrome or from depression, because everybody is, so worried about being, exposed and COVID and vaccines and, who's this demographic and who's not. All these things are happening, right? So turn all that off. So if I was giving everybody advice today, here's what I would do. Come up with the goal you want for you as an executive, okay? Personally, so that you show up with the right state of mind.
Right.
Then what I'd do is I'd start talking to my whole team and I'd start finding out all from my team leaders what their goals are, and put it all together then as a team goal and a team thing for the whole entire company. And then I'd start doing that with the rest of the employees. And I would start to figure that out.
I really love that because I think that a lot of executives are sort of stuck in kind of the old corporate culture. And there's been such a big change with COVID that it's like you really have to shift. You really have to be able to get out of that old box. And I think what you're saying right now is like one way that executives can start that process.
Yeah. Well, look at shiny object syndrome. The reason why I bring up that term is people think it's because the boss or whoever wants to do something or buy something or whatever, or the people. But it's also because that's what your staff wants to feel significant. They want to do good things. So they want to spend money. They want to do. Everybody's all in recession, if you will. But what I'm saying is find a way to get them to invest in themselves, invest in the company, become part of a team. And you know what?
Entrepreneur.
Well, yeah. And then also take a look
at
their
vision
resume.
Together.
Have them reapply for their job that they really want. You might find out, you might have a 10-year employee that does a really good job. And you find out when you really talk to him or her, they don't even want to do that job anymore. They have all this experience, want to do something else. And they see a whole new opportunity. And you find out, what, you've been going to night school for how many years? And now you have a new degree and I didn't even know about it. I almost lost you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So true. So true. I mean, one of the things I did was I harnessed my staff's natural talents. I asked each of them, what is your natural talent? And I found out one of the guys was a photographer. And so I said, well, I went over and I talked to the production department. I said, hey, if you guys ever have any like extra work or anything where you need somebody, you could borrow my guy for the day. And I'd love to send him out there and do that stuff. And so I started doing that with different departments. Like if people were interested in marketing, I'd have them go, intern in another department and give them that exposure. And man, I had one of the loyalist staff. I had a very loyal staff. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Well, how can you not? You fulfilled all their human needs, Christopher.
Mm-hmm.
They were dead certain that they had a great place to work for and a great leader. They loved the variety and the uncertainty. They felt significant. They were building relationships there. Sorry, my hand. They're growing and they get the opportunity to contribute. You met all their 6 human needs all in one format of action. But guess what most people are doing? They're not doing it because they're worried about what they're not getting and how they don't feel good about their story and how they show up. So what do? They put everybody on fear state, on lockdown, on code orange, because nobody to do anything because it's not comfortable for me. So don't nobody have fun. Right.
Love it.
Well, and a lot of the research is showing that just simple engagement with your team, simple engagement with your remote workers is making a significant difference in people staying or leaving companies.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's exactly what you're speaking to right now, which is true for all relationships, right?
And once you create that, and if you're not even totally sure of your goal or what you want, just come up with something financial for the company for now and come up with a profit margin, right? So if you want to make whatever, $10 million a year and you want $1 million of profit out of that $10 million, put that on the wall and figure out how you're going to get there and all that. Then start to align that. If I achieve that, what in my life am I going to be able to do because of that? And if that's nothing other than feel good or donate it to a charity or whatever, you can come up with whatever. Or maybe you buy that new cottage, or you'll be able to put, kids through school or whatever. I'm just saying, come up with something that people can work towards. And in a company, it's pretty hard to do anything other than, because the only thing that really turns the lights on is going to be money, right? And you have to have it. Otherwise, you're not in business. It's that easy. So you can claim you're doing everything to give back to community and all that. You got to give back to you and your team before anybody else. You do that first and foremost, then give back to your community and the other people, and you will have a successful business. But if you try to do everything with charity, it ain't going to work. So
well said. Well,
otherwise, you're going to be taking advantage of a charity yourself, right?
Helphealhumanity.org.
Right.
That's I sit on the board of directors for helphealhumanity.org. So there's a little plug, Serena.
Nice.
Yeah. It's an amazing organization. I have one final question before we wrap up the show. Again, on your website, you had something about there. We're all about kids. We're all about the youth of the world right now, Pam and I, and seeking people who are trying to make the world a better place for our kids. I mean, us adults, yeah, whatever. But we will have a responsibility to make it better for our kids and our kids' kids. That's my whole thing about right now is like my son's 5 years old. And I don't think in his time in school, but I hope his kids in school have history books where they say, back in 2021, 2020, 2022, whatever, the adults of the world really shifted and we became more of a global humanity. We started treating each other with kindness and respect and everything else. But I noticed you have I wrote it down, Kidpreneur Program. Tell us a little bit about that and then tell everybody where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, thank you. So Luke just turned 13, a couple days ago or last week, and Luke started his own company when he was 9 years old, doing product testing on camping gear and tech products, and built his own website, learned how to do that, and he was really inspired by what I was doing in coaching. He sat beside me through so many calls and different deals and consulting things that working on. And so, he really found that inspiring, really wanted to, build his own website as I was writing my first book, The Good Boss. And so, he really became inspired with that and did really, really well and really wanted to learn and figure it out. And he works now with, it's so funny because, he's taken that into full circle. I was mentored by Chet Holmes, I mentioned before. And Chet was, if you don't know him, was the guy who created the Ultimate Sales Machine and the Dream 100 program. And Chet worked for Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, a bunch of people, but it was partnered with Tony Robbins, taught people how to sell. And that's what really changed my life in sales. And when now today, fast forward, Luke also, now he passed away from cancer. His daughter Amanda took over the company. And it's funny because Amanda hired Luke through and he's doing an internship there, and wow. He's been there for quite a while now. So he's doing social media work and marketing and whatnot for her, and which is funny because the same strategies that he's doing at her company are her dad's because of what her dad taught me, and it's pretty awesome. Cool, right? And so Luke and I thought, we want to help other kids though, and parents, because most parents don't, they give their kids an iPad. And I love how parents are like, the kids are on video games all day. Well, you bought it for them and you also forgot to pay attention to them. So yes, they're fulfilling their human needs with scorecards, right? A goal and, and missions. So if we change the mission around a little bit to also involve mom and dad, because that's all they want to do. They don't want to do things on their own. They want to have fun with you. And so you involve them. And so, we've really capitalized on the reward of this, because it's really given a good experience in our family. So the kids are homeschooled now. And so Luke, he does work for my company. Well, he's the vice president now of my company. And
13?
And so, yeah. And
nice.
Yeah, we did that when he was 12. And so, he's doing that. But he's working with companies like Yeti, Cold Steel, and there's so many different places and stuff. And so he's doing really good. And he's on interviews. I know, as Pam knows, he's friends with Mark Victor Hansen and all these great people, and having a lot of fun. He's going to an event now next summer. We're all going. We got invited by Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels to go attend his event and teach about kidpreneurship and whatnot. But it's teaching the same strategies of what we're talking about tonight. It's just that I don't dummy anything down for kids. It's just going through this and making them inspired and inspiring the parents to pay attention to their kids and doing that. And so, he's doing that. My youngest son, Everett, he just turned 10. He's got his own YouTube channel as well. I'm working on doing things for Minecraft. He'd love to build a Minecraft server and trying to, get a good following, and he's doing videos, and they both do all their own editing, and they're teaching each other different techniques and tricks. And I think the cool part is, instead of me teaching Luke, I'm also learning from Luke, because he understands marketing from a totally different angle. So yeah, for us, so we created a Kidpreneur Family Challenge. We're going to do one now with the Bob Proctor program, excuse me, and doing thinking into results for families. And it's really exciting, because the kids are doing that. They're in one of the masterminds that I host, but they actually listen to it twice, because we also do one then during the day, and so they're really putting it in. But we're all a product of the product. We keep doing it day after day after day, and that's what's super exciting. It's busy, but it's a lot of fun. So
awesome! Thank you for sharing that. I was really eager to talk about that. So thank you. Where can people get a hold of you?
I was going to say, so you're doing those on, just so people are aware, you're doing the Kidpreneur meetings on Thursday evenings, and they can find out more about that on your website.
Go to coachtroy.ca.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's the easiest one. I don't know. I mean, people can text me too, but I mean, you can email me at coach@troyaberle.com. I mean, I give out my cell phone to everybody. So if you wanted to put it on there, you can. That's 403-580-6263, and text me. I promise you'll never get a hold of me if you
403-580-6263.
But I love
Real
text.
time.
I give everybody that number, and I get a few hundred messages a day on there, but it's
wow,
good, right? So
is that your personal phone, or is that like another phone that you just do for this? Damn, that's a lot of messages.
And then on Wednesday nights, you also have a program for women, and they can also find that on that same website. Is that correct? All right.
Yeah, if you have a link, drop them a link if you've got one there for it.
I will drop that in the comments for everyone, since they won't be able to. It's a little longer, and so that'll be easier. So if you're looking,
I got to learn how to chunk some of these down. Yeah. So what we're doing is with the Thinking the Results program is taking people through Bob Proctor's 12 module program, and it's really the flagship program that guys from like I Am Academy. He's huge. He's worked with a lot of people in there, Alex Morrison. And, I think of, how many big companies Bob Proctor's worked with. And for me, it's just such a privilege. It's such a perfect way of showing people how to completely show them how to get what they really want in their life. And it just floors me. I wish I'd have known about his program like 20 years ago, because then it would have helped me with so many other things. But I love what I'm able to offer people is, through strategic intervention and whatnot, and the things that Tony has taught me and I've mastered in my own life. But also, being able then to take them through a perfect program like Bob's, and just really be able to do that for people is what's going to transform their life. So if you're not sure how I can help you, reach out, because whether it's a company, whether it's a personal thing, whether it's, helping you with sales, or, something in your relationships or what have you, it's really all the same thing. And I'm more than happy to do that. So I don't focus on just one niche, because I just love coming up with, figuring out so many different ways of helping people. So.
Love it. I love it, man. Thank you for being on the show. Truly, I appreciate you. Yes.
No, thank you. Love it.
Such a pleasure to have you on with us. Thank you so much for being here. And Christopher, any closing thoughts for the audience?
Closing thoughts for the audience. I would say that the biggest thing that we could take away from this conversation, and thank you so much again for illustrating this, is that we have to take responsibility. We have to be aware of where it is that we are in our journey. We have to come to accept and take responsibility for where it is. And then, like you said, choosing to be a victim or a victor, that is our choice. I tell people all the time, whatever happened to you in your past childhood was not your fault. However, it is your fault if you continue to perpetuate that negative self-talk within our own, minds. So obviously the point of the thing is to take responsibility for you. So, cut things out of your life that are not conducive to the goals of where it is that you're going, and get on board with having a coach, having a mentor, having somebody in your life. Surround yourself with brighter, smarter people, and your trajectory and your success will continue to fly as well. So that's what I got out of the entire conversation. I hope all of you guys did that. As whether you're watching this live or on the replay, ping us, put in the comments if you have any questions. We'd love to answer those after the fact, and get in touch with Troy. So those are my comments. Pam, what about you? Close us out.
Well, I appreciate you both so much, and I couldn't agree more with what you have said and with what Troy has said tonight. It's so true. Taking that responsibility, but knowing that in the end that we're the ones who reap the benefits of doing that. And so with that, I just want to thank you all for being here, listening. If you're listening and you weren't on the show tonight and didn't see this, then the website again was coachtroy.ca. That's where you can find him. And just as always, lots of love and light going out to all of you. If this was an encouragement to you, please share it out. It might be an encouragement to someone else as well. That's why we do this show. That's really our heart in this show, and really the joy that it brings us. So thank you again for being here. And again, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Take a gas.